currently available for the FTP server. The first is associated with directives listed in the VS-FTP configuration file, some of which was discussed in another video. The second is associated with a firewall. It's easy enough to open a firewall for all access using the security level configuration tool. Just disable the firewall. But what if you want limited access? You could run the IP tables command directly, which can support limited access using IP addresses. Myself, I use the security level configuration tool to allow access to the FTP service, which opens up port 21. Then I open up the associated configuration file, etc/sysconfig/iptables, and then I include the -s switch in the appropriate command. The -s allows me to specify the IP address or network of my choice. In this case, 192.168.0.0 with the 255.255.255.0 network mask. This is the directive which allows access through port 21. And the -s switch supports access and limits it to that specific network. I restart the firewall service. And look at that. Access to the FTP service is now limited to that specific network. Similar firewall security measures are possible using TCP wrappers. VS-FTP is a TCP service and thus can be controlled by TCP wrappers configuration files, specifically etc/hostallow and etc/hostdeny. I've discussed the configuration of these files in another video. Just remember to cite the daemon as configured in the user/sbin directory. In this case, it's VS-FTPD, and the equivalent command to the firewall command discussed earlier is to limit access, as shown here. Finally, security includes settings associated with Security Enhanced Linux. Let's review the options associated with FTP. The Security Enhanced Linux Management tool is easiest to see and configure from the GUI. The settings associated with FTP apply to the FTP server. The first option here, active by default, allows VS-FTPD to be run as a regular service without benefit of the xinetd daemon. In other words, you could control VS-FTPD via service script in the etc/initd directory. The second option helps limit uploads, even if they're enabled in the VS-FTPD configuration file. Uploads are only allowed to those directories with the noted label. To configure that label on a directory, such as var/ftp/pub, you want to add the label shown here to that directory. And the T at the end indicates that it's a type label, and with the chicon command, you can add that to the directory of your choice. This particular command adds it to var/ftp/pub. The next two directives allow FTP servers access to directories that are mounted from remote systems. In this case, from a remote Samba or Common Internet File System. In this case, from a remotely mounted network file system share. The next to last directive is almost self-explanatory and goes with allowing users access to their home directories via FTP. The final directive disables SE Linux protection for the VS-FTP service and should be a last resort. If your exam requires SE Linux, this option means you won't get full credit for your work if you end up having to enable it,